Welcome back, everybody, to Swan Survival and Fusion's Ramblings. In this series, we take a few minutes while playing Minecraft to ramble on about random topics. And today's topic is, what would you do with $1 million? Oh, yay, $1 million! Woohoo! Yippee! Oh, wait, we don't have $1 million. I mean, really though, what would you do with $1 million if you were just given $1 million, no strings attached? Here you go. Here's $1 million. Have fun. You know, what would you do with that $1 million? And there's probably a ton of answers, and depending on who you are, um, what you would do would be obviously different from everybody else. Um, so I can only talk about two things. One, what I would do with $1 million, and what I think people should do with $1 million. So, not that my opinion matters, because it doesn't, except to me. Um, but I guess that's what I can share, right? Um, and in retrospect, when you think about it, $1 million, while it sounds like it's a big number, I think this is the first thing that we need to realize is that it is not a big number money wise. Not in today's uh, economy and world. I mean, think about it. Your average home for a lot of us, if you are in the Western world, or I won't even say the Western world, but let's just say that you are in um, and I don't know why they have to come up with these designations, but a first world country. So let's say U.S., Canada, the European EU, most of it, anyways. Um, Australia, New Zealand, Iceland. There's others. It's actually quite a large list. Japan, Korea, if you want to look at Asia, Taiwan or Singapore, areas like that. That your average cost of a house could take half of that right there. So, because you hear people all the time say, well, I'm going to buy a house. Perfect. I mean, that's good. That's a good investment, because my mouse doesn't, now my mouse decided to kind of work, kind of not work. Anyways, that's a good investment. Because a house has resale value for the future. Hopefully, of course, the market goes up instead of down. And so, there's advantages there. Um, so that's one thing that you could do with $1 million is you invest in money, or in property. Hello, Mr. Zombie. Would you like $1 million? No. Okay, well, it will just end your misery. Poor zombie. Um, so back to our question, what would you do with $1 million? Okay, well, the first option, of course, for many people is that they would buy a place to live. And that makes sense because, from a life achievement standpoint, when it comes to taking care of yourself and your family, having a roof over your head is a big thing, and that's important. Um, Unfortunately, a lot of people go a little overboard because they go, oh, $1 million, we can get, our big mansion and, we can do all kinds of things with it and, have all these extra things. But you have to remember that with a house comes a lot of other responsibilities and expenses. I mean, you're going to have your yearly taxes, which you can't avoid no matter what. The government, no matter what country you're in, they're going to want their taxes, property taxes, on that house, whether it's managed by the community or or by the locality, the city, the town, the township, province, whatever you want to call it, or just by the federal government, in that area. They're going to want their taxes, right? So you have to be aware of that. And then um, the other thing is maintenance. A house is going to require some maintenance, no matter what. Over time, you're going to have to do repairs. You're going to have to, change things, repaint, you name it. There's all kinds of things that you'll have to maintain. And then, of course, there are all of the extra bills that come along with it. Insurance, homeowners insurance, to cover flood or fire or theft or damage or whatever. And then you also might have, of course, you got your power, your utilities, all of that. Um, and while you go, well, yeah, those are just normal bills, you have to remember, depending on the type of house that you're purchasing with that $1 million, your normal utilities could be a lot higher. Especially, depending on where you live too. If it's kind of sad. If you live in a nicer neighborhood, a lot of times um, your utilities go up. And if you're part of a community, you might have association type fees and dues that you have to pay every single month. Um, and so, it's not just about buying the house anymore. Now you're taking on a lot of extra responsibility with that house. Now, the second item that usually comes up with most people, if, they say, they were going to be given $1 million, is I'm going to buy a car, I'm going to buy multiple cars. Um, Okay, that's great. I mean, having a car can be very important depending on the country you live in. Not all countries, because there are plenty of locations out there where a car is just not practical, or not needed, because either public transportation is really good or everything that you would ever need is within walking distance. And so a car is like just a luxury item to have, but really no need for it. Um, and nothing wrong with, of course, buying a car and getting a new one. And, people will go buy their fancy car, whatever it is, Lamborghini or Jaguar or Mustang or BMW, a really nice one, or Mercedes. I don't know, whatever your fancy is, right? And of course, some people will spend extravagant amounts of money on vehicles, collectors' vehicles, things like that. Um, But either way, uh, you know, that could be what you'd spend your money on. There are, of course, other things such as I'm going to take care of my college tuition expenses. I'm going to take care of medical expenses that have piled up. And obviously, those are win-wins no matter what. If you can pay off a debt with that $1 million, then that's good, because then even if you don't have the $1 million, you don't have that debt hanging over you, right? Pay off the house loan for the house you're currently in, you name it. There's a lot of advantages to doing that. Um, if it was me, what would I do with $1 million? Honestly, I would invest 90% of it. And I'm not talking about investing all of it into stock or Bitcoin or things like that. I mean, I would take that 90%, I would put a good portion of it, I would say 70% of it, just into savings, a bank account savings. And here's why. Even if, that bank has a low interest accumulative rate on a yearly basis, um, it makes a huge difference. I mean, if you were to, as an example, if you were to put in 1%, or I mean, put in $1 million into a bank and their interest was 1% a year. I know that's a terrible rate. But let's say that's what it was. Um, what's 1% of $1 million, right? I don't know. What's my math? My brain has stopped working. and I cannot figure it out. 1% is $10,000. So that means, for the year you would earn $10,000. If that's, I know that's a bad situation. Most banks, have a monthly interest rate that you're going to get of whatever it might be. Um, and so, of course, that's a lot better. But I mean, that's the key is that if, depending on how much money that you put into the bank, it is possible to get to a point where you can actually live off of the interest. And it may not be a luxury lifestyle, but to where you can pay your bills, um, or a good portion of your bills just by the interest that you get on a monthly basis from a bank account. Um, and I know my example was terrible because if you go, well, if I'm only going to get $10,000 a year, then that is not worth it. Um, and I don't know what the rates are, and I'd have to look it up. I don't even know what the rate is with my own savings accounts. I have several of them. I'd have to look. I'm terrible at finances. So I'd probably be terrible at spending $1 million too. But I mean, that's what I would personally do. If I had $1 million, is I would invest most of it, if not all of it, into a savings account. Simply because the advantage of just getting free money. I mean, I'm going to have to pay taxes on that interest, every year, of course, if I report it to the government, which the government's going to find out. So report it no matter what, okay? Just pay the taxes, get it taken care of. But I would rather have that extra money, and just know that, hey, I'm going to have that extra money. And then the fact that you have that money in the bank too gives you opportunities. Because if you're trying to purchase something, normally, you're going to get a car loan, you're going to get a house, and you're going to get a bank loan for the house, and but you don't touch that money. It makes a huge difference in what you can do with your loan. Plus, you have a safety net if something goes wrong, right? Uh, Most people, when they get $1 million, they spend, 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 and then they're done for. Uh, it's gone. They don't have it anymore. And so it's like a short term, woohoo, we party, oh, the party's over type of thing. And then I've read plenty of stories too where, people, they try to be smart. They go out and they invest, in businesses and in ideas and things like that, but they aren't really business savvy, let's say, because they want to own their own business, and hey, I could sell cookies, right? But they really don't have that business mindset, and they don't treat it, like they should, and then before you know it, they're in debt. They've lost all their money because they've sunk it into the business, and the business didn't succeed. And that's unfortunate. It really is. And then, of course, you have others that go through the whole um, family and friends issue of, oh, you have $1 million. Can I borrow this money? Oh, can you help us out? Oh, come on, we're family, and all of that. And don't get me wrong, family's important, and I completely understand that and everything. And you got to love your family. I mean, I hope you do, and it's a good family. But I mean, you can't give all your money away either, even if it is family. uh, you can't just give your money away because it won't last, right? And then, in most cases, people will come and take advantage of you too. Old friends, people you really haven't had contact with on a regular basis. Um, they show up all of a sudden, and it's like they're your best buddy, old pal in the world. And come on, you remember that one time I loaned you $20? You can help me out, right? We're friends, or we're family, or so you got to be careful about that as well. I mean, I've seen a lot of articles and stories where they recommend the first thing you should always do when you win a large amount of money is get a lawyer. And the second thing you should do is get an accountant, to manage that money for you. And yes, that takes money. You got to pay the lawyer, and you got to pay the accountant. But I mean, if I had to take $10,000 of that and invest it into a lawyer to set myself up with, everything I need to from a legal standpoint, and then, an accountant to set everything up and how I'm going to either invest the money or save it or use that money up front, it's worth it. I mean, it protects you from harm. It really does, instead of trying to do it on your own. And there are successful individuals out there that do very well with when they win a large amount of money and they manage it quite well. But we're talking about $1 million. It's not much. It really is not in today's world. It used to be, but in today's world, $1 million doesn't really go a long ways because in a lot of places, you can barely buy a house. Um, you know, Now, for some of us, $1 million sounds like a ton because we may not have even made $1 million in our life yet. With all of our paychecks and everything, we just haven't gotten that far because, maybe we're only making, um, you know, 30,000 US dollars a year, and that's if you're um, in those locations. If you're in another country, your salary might be the equivalent of, less than 10,000 US dollars a year, which is really unfortunate. And those are the individuals that'll probably benefit more is in a non first world country if they got $1 million, but the rest of us, it's not much. So, what can you do with $1 million? There's a lot of things you can do. You can go spend it right away and it's all gone. Sad, sad, sad. And you'll probably cry about it. You can invest it, save it, prepare for the zombie apocalypse, as I have here. Um, yeah, come on, you might as well get some too. um, and or you can be smart with it, and make some wise decisions, which isn't always the easy choice. um, Anyways, I think we are over time on our topic today. I keep setting up my phone here to start a timer on when I start these series or these episodes, but I always forget to click the start button. I click the record button on the computer, but I don't click the timer button, and so then I'm left guessing. Okay, how long have I been recording? I've been doing stuff. Did I record for 15 minutes, or am I going over 15 minutes? Anyways, so what would you do with $1 million? Well, you've got a lot of choices, and the best advice is just weigh those choices carefully and make some smart decisions. Don't set yourself up for failure, misery, or anything else. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and we shall see you in the next episode.